Another week of Soccer's morning show kicking off here. Soccer Down here on the SDH Network. John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by. Standard Reaction Monday. Obviously, we've got to talk about what happened. And once again, as I always say, morning ropes, just whatever's on your mind. I don't want you to hang on to it anymore. Just go ahead and put it in the Twitch pitch and have the conversations with all your friends as we always do here on Reaction Mondays. Let it all hang out, and we'll discuss and we'll go through what's on your mind. Obviously, making sure that no stone is left by the time we get to, well, frankly, tomorrow, because it's Open Cup and it's Atlanta United and Indy 11 up in Kennesaw. 3 wins away from a title and some hardware. Everything that's gone on this season, you're 3 wins away from it. And there's an interesting bit of subplot involving the other teams in the eastern half of the discussion, with Sporting Kansas City and FC Dallas after what happened last night. So we'll get into that as well. But pretty busy week across the board. So traffic today, as always, on a Reaction Monday, 9:15-ish, depending on where he is. Abe could be with Chipper. Abe could be, he could be all over the place. We'll see where Abe is, and we'll get into the discussion about Atlanta United and Real Salt Lake. We'll get into a little bit of the Olympic team. We'll get into more about the Olympic team at 10 o'clock. Bart Keeler has made his way back from the Wasatch, and he was in person there for knocking off another stadium off of his grid. And so we'll discuss what's going on with the announcement of the Olympic team, plus the alternates, plus the folks that weren't let go, plus the folks that were let go, the folks that are the alternates, what Bart thinks about this Olympic side, and what he thinks about the tournament in general. And we'll get into what Bart thinks about the youth national team, the men's national team, all of that stuff, the official term, stuff. 10 o'clock, Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US POD. Plus, once again, whatever else is on your mind, we'll kind of recap the weekend. And I've also noticed that I probably should have gone a size up when it came to getting the Copa America t-shirts, because apparently it's some European cut, or maybe it's just sitting there and recognizing that the gun show is absolutely the way that it should be. But, man, it's just tight in the shoulders. I should have gone a size up. That's just me. Traffic for the week. This is the last show this week from Office HD. The rest of the week will be from the mountains. It's the week where the boss calls it, and it's like, we're going to the mountains for the week. And I'm like, okay. And so I do the show from the basement of the house that we rent. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be from the mountains. Early kickoff on Friday because they kick us out of the house at 10 o'clock. So we're starting at 8. And I'm going to really regret it, as I always do. 8 o'clock start on Friday morning, done by 10, out the door, and we pack and we drive back here to Atlanta. Tomorrow, very, very busy show. Obviously, we're previewing Open Cup, and it looks like Lucas Panzica from the Nashville SC radio crew. He's going to join us at 9:05 to talk about BJ Callahan. Looks like Dale Parker from App FC is going to be joining us as the NPSL gets ready for the Southeast Conference semifinals. Trying to effort Jonathan Mercado from Apotheos as a part of the discussion as well. Trying to also bring into the discussion, if I could get my upper plate to work, Carlos Rubio from Hickory FC. That might be a Wednesday, 10:30, just depending on availability. Looks like Greg Rakestraw, the voice of Indy 11, will be joining us in the 10 o'clock hour, as Indy 11 is going to be doing radio for this match, and it's going to be very, very cool. Also efforting another couple of folks. Wednesday, Tyler Pilgrim at 9:15. Hopefully the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler, joining us at 10. We'll see if we can get any other coaches involving playoffs and things like that on Wednesday. Thursday, it is fairly normal in hour number 1. Nino Torres joining us at 10 o'clock from Gold TV to talk about what's going on with the Copa, and maybe he can fix the T-shirt issue. Nico Moreno joining us at 10:30. And then Friday, once again, early start, getting everything squared away so I don't get kicked out of the house that we have in the mountains, starting that at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock start, 10 o'clock finish on Friday. So I filibustered enough. He's been ready, and he's been he's like, bruh, can you kind of move things along here? I got work to do. Abe Garden joining us. First off, have you recovered from the peach tree, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. My legs are a little sore the next day, but planning to get back out there later this evening and go for a 4 or 5 mile run. So we're back after it. We got to just keep mileage up, I guess. I don't know.
Well, so what was your time, by the way?
I did 59:28, but there were a few circumstances that slowed me down. I had to take a little bathroom break, mile 4 or so, and then I ran into a couple members of my running group who were doing a party run somewhere towards the back end of the race. So instead of going into my kick and speeding up, we slowed down. We took some pictures. So I was probably closer to 56, 57 minutes if I had kept running. So still pleased though. We still broke an hour.
I was going to ask what your target time was, and it's breaking an hour for you.
Yeah, that's loosely it. I would have liked to go a little faster, but yeah, breaking an hour is kind of where I'd like to be at. So we're still all right.
Okay, so that was July 4th.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have to thank Sam and Greg for putting up with me on July 4th as well. While you were running, they decided it's like, get Nelson on the show. Let's see what he wants to talk about. And so as a spectator and as a cheerleader, they had me on for my perspective. And so, yeah, regrettably, that interview is still up. So if you want to go check out Crenshaw and Clarkson and find out what it's like for me to do an old-timey radio voice, as 60,000 folks are passing by me and I'm doing play-by-play of the race. So that's what's on their particular perspective. That was July 4th. The weekend for Atlanta United, you went to RSL, and it was a rough one. I mean, there's no way to couch around it. And the biggest thing, you sit there, you go set piece defending, capital S, capital P, capital D, SPD, set piece defending. 3 goals of the 5 were that way. 5-2 loss out in the mountains, then you come home.
Yeah, the interesting thing was, and I was trying to be realistic with my mindset heading into the game. And I said on the pregame show that it could end up like a 5-1 result. And I wouldn't have a problem with that. In my mind, 5-1 is because you get overly aggressive. You're going to need to score. You get pushed up the field, attack, and you get beat here and there. And I'm okay living with that. But that's not what happened. You got beat when you had guys behind the ball. It's a situation that we've seen at every level, whether you're watching high school games, college, lower level professional, high level, whatever it is. You have got to make teams work hard to beat you. That's the frustrating aspect of it. I didn't mind losing 4 goals, 3 goals, whatever the number was going to be. I was in a mindset where I was prepared for that to be the deal. Like, we're going to criticize Atlanta United here, and rightfully so. Let's understand what Real Salt Lake is. And they are quite simply one of the teams that will be contending for the MLS Cup. They have a potential MLS Landon Donovan MVP award winner on their squad. And we obviously saw him get involved on Saturday night as well. So not trying to take away from Real Salt Lake, who is absolutely capable of this type of quality, this type of beatdown, but you didn't make it tough enough for them to beat you. That's what's most frustrating. And you could kind of hear it. Like, we heard from Rob Valentino post-game. We heard from Dax McCarty, Derek Williams. You could tell, like, I think teams themselves, individual players, are okay if they get beat because they tried this or tried that. I don't think you're okay getting beat in the manner that you did. I mean, completely losing Arango on a set piece, the corner to a guy at the top of the 18 who's got a chance to watch the sunset before delivering the strike. I mean, it's like, what are we doing? And so I don't mind losing that badly. I expected to not get a result in this game, but how the goals came is what's just absolutely most frustrating, and it can tell you and show you that there's still a lot of work to be done. And the other aspect of this is you didn't have any designated players.
Yeah.
Thiago Almada officially gone. We've known about Giakoumakis, and look, we knew, it wasn't a surprise, that Stian Gregerson had the yellow card suspension. But it's impossible, and I mentioned this, I had Jason Longshore on my show yesterday. It's not going to be an easy read of what this team is or can be over the next month. You're also going to lose Caleb Wiley. I know you talked about and will talk about the U.S. Olympic team, and certainly that became official today, but no one's surprised that Wiley's involved, so we can talk about it openly without spoiling the surprise. Yeah. And so you're going to lose him, and the timeline for the window and when guys will actually be able to come in, whoever you bring in with travel and visa and all sorts of other stuff, you're maybe like 4 weeks, 6 weeks before you really get a good look at what this team is. So it's frustrating not to get the result. It's frustrating to make it easy on your opponent, but ultimately not a huge surprise as to how things went Saturday night.
Yeah. Note from U.S. Soccer: the U.S. will prepare for the games at the FC Girondins de Bordeaux. So they're going to be in Bordeaux from July 9 through 20 before moving to Marseille ahead of the opening match against France. And so that's where the Olympic element is. But remember this, and this was also to your point about this match. This was a match where you allow a goal in the first minute, 40 something seconds, and then you got into the rhythm of the match with the roster being what it was and the starting 11 being what it was without any designated players. The adjustments that Rob Valentino and the staff made got you into the rhythm of it, and then you end up with the game tying goal, and you were 1-1 in this match. You got to the break at 1-1 and you had asserted control. Rob also mentioned when the match was over that traditionally it's at about the 60-minute mark where teams seem to bonk when they get to Rio Tinto and they're playing on the road there. But yeah, I mean, 3 set pieces, that is going to be the big specter of this whole thing. But you got to see leading into that, though, adjustments made by Rob Valentino and the staff that got you the equalizer after giving up that chaotic first goal. And you had RSL on their heels, but you could not finish the drill.
Well, and that's going to bring up the other issue. And you're right about the 60 minutes. You look at where their next goal came. It was at 59, and then it progresses and it gets worse from there. But you let them off the hook in the first half. And forgetting the first minute goal aside, you had more than just the one chance that you had. And it was a situation where you looked at it and you're like, you dominated 44 minutes of this half on the road against one of the best teams in the MLS. Like, that's something you should be proud about. But at the same time, you're like, man, it probably should be like 2-1 or 3-1 Atlanta United. And the fact that it's not doesn't bode well for what to expect in the second half. And so you could kind of see it coming. There were opportunities to be had there that you didn't quite finish, and that cost you all the same. Look, the team was prepared. And they were ready. And again, with the exception of the first 52 seconds, they executed very strongly in that first half. Look, without Giakoumakis, without Thiago Almada, almost everything has to go right in the buildup right now for you to get a team goal. And I'm not trying to discredit anyone out there for Atlanta United. There's not an expectation, maybe with the exception of Saba, I guess. There's not an expectation, at least for me, for a lot of moments of individual brilliance. And to me, that means things have to go right on multiple stages of the buildup and the attack for you to finally get the ball in a position to finish a goal. And it's just so tough to ask for everything to go right. I mean, you can do so much right, and then the final pass a bit behind, and then the guy's skying it over the goal or putting it wide, whatever it may be. And so just very difficult to find goals right now. And look, credit to what Daniel Rios has done. He's got, 4 goals in 6 matches. He had a beautiful back heel on the goal that did eventually come from Saba. He's played well, but he just requires so much delivery and so much help getting him the ball in that position. And to do it without someone special like a Giakoumakis a moment could provide, and certainly like we've seen for 2+ years with Thiago Almada, it's just so much to ask everything to be right multiple times per game. And that, I think that's what showed in the first half, where you had situations where you were aggressive, you were high pressing. It caused some turnovers, and it got you into some good situations. It really did. But still, you couldn't find a way to finish. And you knew, at least I felt at 1-1 at halftime, you're like, man, feels like a lost opportunity. They played well. Did you really think they were going to keep it up at that level? I didn't. A lot of times it might go the other way, right? You feel like, man, can we just get to halftime and get a break? This team's pressing on us, and we're lucky if we can get to halftime with whatever scoreline we're sitting at. It's kind of the other way. You almost didn't want halftime. You were playing so well, and you didn't want the opponent to come out fresh with a chance to adjust. But that is what we saw, and certainly things switched there at halftime for Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, and you end up with the big loss on the road. It was once again, it was the 5-3-2 or 5-2, 3-5-2, 5-3-2, however you want to call it. You had the three center backs of Ronald, Derek, and Noah, and Ronald something out of necessity, where you had to have him in, considering schedule compression and where we are right now. It was Caleb, Noah, Derek, Ronald, Brooks. That was your back five that could flow up the wings. Dax and Bart in the midfield, and then up top, Shande Silva, Sabalob, Janitza, Daniel Rios. Daniel Rios, by the way, punched an 8.2 on SofaScore. You were talking about Daniel. And one of the things that I also don't want folks to forget is that in this situation, going up against a very, very tough RSL team, you continued to try things. You continued to you continued to be brave. And that was one of the things that offensively, to your point about Daniel Rios, it's like you're still trying things, and it's like, okay, you're going to try to work over the top to try to get things to Rios, to get him fed, to continue to end up with what you were getting there. It's just that, to your point, in that first half, you had to be clinical, put things away, get that lead to give you that buffer, because when you get to 60, that's when it seems like the world will tilt when you make that visit to Rio Tinto.
Yeah, it's also a confidence thing. It's also Real starting to question themselves if they are down 2-1, down 3-1 somehow at halftime. And yes, there's a buffer in terms of if you make a mistake, you might still have a lead, or you might still be holding on to a point. But I think the mentality of it is something as well. And for Real Salt Lake to kind of have the mentality of, all right, we kind of withstood 44 minutes of, and yes, we had the 1-goal lead at the very start, but withstanding 44 minutes of just one directional traffic, it felt like, to then get out of there. And it's like, all right, we get to wipe the slate clean, 0-0, 1 half to go. And these guys are tired and will be tired within 20 minutes. I think that gave them a mental boost as well, heading into halftime, knowing what was in front of them in the second half. So, look, I mean, if anything, and look, we said this when it was Gonzalo Pineda. We'll say the same thing here when it is Rob Valentino. I don't think the second half letdown has much to do with Rob Valentino. When you're letting the supposed front runner for the MVP award just run free off of a restart, and it's just like wide open in the back post, like that's not a managerial call. And so the players have got to be more organized. They've got to be more responsible. You do wonder if Stian Gregerson makes a difference there. I mean, let me say this. I don't wonder. I know he would have made a difference there. How could you not? Mike Conti posted something after the game. I think he had said, like, Atlanta United has given up like 9 set-piece goals this season, or whatever the number may be. And just, I do wonder, and I'm too lazy to look up the stat. I kind of posted it hoping that Mike Conti would look it up for me, but I think he's got better things to do with his time as well. But I do wonder, of those 9, how many Stian Gregerson was on the field for, and how much that could help. I mean, we talked about it pregame. Like, Derek Williams is going to be tasked with keeping this group together with still a very young Noah Cobb on one side, and Ronald Hernandez, who I traditionally don't think of as a center back, on the other.
But I don't think you had much of a choice, considering schedule compression and absences and all this kind of stuff. You're having to plot for a match on Tuesday, and then having to plot for the road trip to Montreal all at the same time.
Well, I understand why they did it. And look, if we're being honest, and maybe others feel differently, just considering where we are in the season, both in terms of MLS and in terms of U.S. Open Cup, if I had to lose this game on the road at Real Salt Lake in MLS play to win at home against Indy 11 and move on to the semifinals of the U.S. Open Cup, like, that's a trade that I'm going to make. Yeah. And I know a lot of people may not feel the same way, but I do. Because no matter what you put out there, it was always going to be tough to beat Real Salt Lake in the form that they've been on, really for the majority of the season at home. Moving to the semis, though, of the U.S. Open Cup, and potentially getting within 2 games of a trophy in what has been an otherwise frustrating season, you got to go for that. And some of the roster decisions were made with that in mind. There's no doubt about that.
You mentioned Open Cup. and literally you're 3 wins from a trophy.
Yeah.
Right now, you are 3 wins from a trophy that gets you into CONCACAF. And with the revenue that you have coming in with the players that have departed, plus the discussions about other players possibly departing, plus the idea of whether it is a player or some kind of financial, and this is and I'm talking about the Ezequiel Barco transaction that's being talked about right now, where right now there is a discussion involving Ezequiel Barco going from River Plate to Spartak Moscow. Don't ask me how that connection was made, but right now, if I'm Atlanta United and I see that is an idea that is close to coming to fruition, I ain't wanting nothing in rubles, brother. That's just not going to happen right now. So I'm going to want something more concrete from River Plate if this is going to go down. Do I end up with a player instead of the money and then let River Plate sort out getting rubles from Spartak Moscow? Do I get a little bit more than I would with a percentage of the pass? You're going to have some resources available to you next season, the tail end of this season and next, that can help you in CONCACAF competition if you win your next 3 matches here. So this is a big turn that you talk about here starting Tuesday.
Well, the interesting thing is if you can beat the Indy 11, which you hopefully can accomplish, like even if the MLS team wins on the other side of that bracket, Seattle at Sacramento, like Seattle's a beatable squad as well. And so, I know you got some other teams. LAFC is still floating around. That obviously would be the big bad wolf in terms of reaching the finals. But Seattle's beatable. Sacramento should be. I mean, you have in front of you what could be a path to that title game. And again, whether or not you feel like the U.S. Open Cup is as good as a trophy as something else, it still gets you some very big benefits for the next season. And that is something you cannot argue. You may not be happy with it, but the benefits are clear. And so, look, this is a situation where you're frustrated to lose certain players. There's no denying that. You have done good in a business sense, though, over the past month or however long it's been since Giakoumakis was sold, combining with this Thiago Almada deal. You're going to have money, and you also now have time. The fact that you're making these moves early before the MLS window opens, you now have an idea of who you want to go after and some time to scout them, talk deals, and all that stuff before you can officially get going. So I'm very interested to see what sort of decisions are made, who they bring in. I mean, if you just remember the transfer window last year, the additions that they made, and while ultimately the season didn't end up as some great midseason maneuvering, I was very pleased with the additions they made at the deadline last year. And that was when you're dealing with quite a bit more restrictions than you are right now. And so I am very optimistic and interested to see where Garth Lagerwey, Carlos Bocanegra, and the entire front office and technical staff ends up going here, because I think there's an opportunity. And look, you're not going to make some additions that get you into the top 4. That has come and gone already. But are there some additions that can make you to the right side of the playoff line and then dangerous come playoff time? I think so. I don't know who. I don't have a name for you. I'm not going to pretend to have a name for you. I'll wait until they give me a name, and then I'll do a quick Wikipedia check on that dude and see what's going on. But I am very optimistic and hopeful about what this roster could look like in, say, 6 weeks or however long it takes to get players not only signed, but in here training with the club, up to speed, visas, and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think that is, and I mentioned it, as much as it's going to be frustrating over the next month or so without some of these key playmakers, I think when you get past that on the other side, again, maybe too little too late to make a serious run up the table, but just get into the playoffs and see what happens.
Abe Gordon at Abe Gordon at 929 The Game. What are the broadcast plans coming up for you the next couple of days?
Yeah, we're actually rolling into Kennesaw tomorrow night. Pregame show, the Five Stripes Countdown, going to start at 6 o'clock before we hand things over to Mike Connie and Jason Longshore, and we got the post game after. Hopefully, we can be talking obviously about a victory. We'll be keeping an eye on some of the other games as well in the U.S. Open Cup. Certainly, we'll be talking a little bit about Euros and Copa America as well. So definitely locked in there. And then I'm actually out of town going on a baseball trip with my father on the weekend. So I will not be around for CF Montreal, but Garrett Chapman will be handling the pre and post game duties as he usually does alongside me. So he might have to go solo dolo. Maybe we have a special guest on the weekend, but however it works out, we're going to have all sorts of coverage for you as we continue. And we'll probably start to look a little bit deeper into the Olympic tournament as well, especially now that Caleb Wiley will be heading off. Certainly a lot of interest. Our old buddy Miles Robinson.
Who?
One of the not to throw you or I under the bus, but
who?
One of Miles.
Who?
What?
Who?
Well, now because of the age limit stuff, we just get to call him the old guy on the team. So
yeah, one of them.
Excited about that. Yeah, one of the three old guys. So it'll be interesting. We'll definitely be breaking down some of those decisions as well.
Yeah, that dude that used to be here that is now assumed the role of an FC Cincinnati player. I don't know who you're talking about. You mentioned a name and it just kind of fuzzed out the second you mentioned a name. So where are you going with your dad?
This year we are going to Houston. So we've got a couple games to the Astros, which thankfully that stadium is domed and air conditioned. So very pleased with that. And then we're going to check out a couple minor league stadiums as well. Yeah. We always hit the minor leagues. So I want to say they're the Sugarland
Skeeters.
Yeah. I think we're going to see them. Yeah.
Nice. You got to get the gear too. So that's you got to get your Sugarland Skeeters gear, and
I think they call the Space Cowboys now. Sugarland Space Cowboys. Yeah,
the Space Cowboys, and I think their logo is really sweet if I remember correctly, because I was doing a search looking for cheap MILB gear the other day. So
it's an astronaut with a cowboy hat on, kind of.
Yeah, you can't go
kind of in that realm. Yeah.
Well, just enjoy the trip with your dad. Obviously, going to minor league ballparks and sharing the baseball experience with your dad is always very, very cool. Stop talking to me and get to work, because I know that folks are going to yell at you.
You got it, John. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, that's Abe, and so Abe's going to. That's going to be cool. We need pictures now. See, now when Abe is going to go and hang out with his dad from the Sugarland Space Cowboys, that's going to be a really fun. That's going to be a fun look. So we'll get him to talk about that next week. First off, I hope that everything is okay in downtown Houston and in the suburbs, considering obviously we're thinking about our friends in the Southwest with what's going on with Beryl making landfall very, very early this morning. And that's kind of where I have my other monitors right now. Obviously, part of it is the soccer part, but the other part is the human interest part and seeing what's going on here. So, yeah, for those of you who are watching right now, I have one monitor locked into Houston television, and I've got the Weather Channel going on off my left shoulder. But, yeah, obviously keeping our thoughts and our warmth and our love to everybody in the Southwest who is affected by Beryl right now. So keep an eye on that. But that's going to be very cool with Abe and his dad, and I want pictures. So that's the cool stuff. Let's see. So morning Ropes, morning Derek, and morning Pars. Pars is with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans this morning. Pars is in Myrtle Beach. Ropes wants to know if we want to live in denial, not mentioning the river in Egypt, I guess. No, just I think that the acceptance of just accept it, take the information of it, and move forward. That's what you do. Yeah, Pars. That's the thing. It's like Pars, sitting there and he's looking at this T-shirt. It's great, and but the thing is that I like baggy. I like baggy T-shirts, and I guess this is opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And by the way, this is the QR code for those of you who are watching on the 280 character app, and I'll cover up the other QR code from our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. That's the QR code. And what you do with that QR code is you click on that and you go to our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And what you do there is you use the code SoccerDownHere15 when you kick off your day. They get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, so let me dispose of our friend here. But yeah, so let me show you this. I don't know how many of you spent an absolute fortune on your gear when the Copa came to town. I did. Because you don't know the next time something like this is going to be in a place where you can cover it and you can get things and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, what I did is I burned a hole in my credit card. So as you can see, for those watching on Twitch, Argentina scarf, USA scarf, and the generic Copa scarf is, I think, hidden. I think the generic Copa scarf is right there. So the Copa scarf is right there. Got the pins, got the hats, got the T-shirts, and they got really smart the second time around, where they ended up with the venue-specific T-shirts. Very, very smart. And the venue-specific Atlanta T-shirt that they did for the Copa, very, very cool. I'll figure out if that's another gun show T-shirt. But yeah, this one, the one that just has the logo and everything on it. Pars. I appreciate the flattery with the gun show bit, but it's tight. I put this thing on this morning and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, this is great that, you've got that it's cool and everything, but it's a tight T-shirt. It's an XL. And it's like, by the time it gets down to your waist, you have to assume that it's an XL T-shirt because it's built out. It's not built, like a wedge. It's not a big wide T-shirt. It actually starts skinny and goes wide. It's almost like a tent. Starts tight and goes wide as it goes further down. So yeah, I mean, literally, I think the boss might end up getting more wear out of these than me just because of how tight these things are. It's almost like a muscle shirt up top. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, what I may end up doing is once the tournament is over, I may go to the Copa store and get the double X, and then that way I'll have something with it, and maybe it'll be on discount or something like that. But no, this is tight, man. I mean, it's almost to the point to where I have to wear something else. So yeah, so Pars, I appreciate the love and the compliment, but man, these T-shirts that are printed by international or hemispheric entities, just give me a baggy T-shirt. Just make it an XL and make it work. I like baggy T-shirts. This one, literally, this is form-fitting, and I'm not a form-fitting guy. So do not be surprised if at some point I end up having to change my shirt this morning just because of how uncomfortable it is when I'm having to do these kinds of things. So, all right, that's opening kickoff. The perils of purchasing international gear. That's your QR code from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And so what you do once again is you click on that QR code. And what you do there, use the code Soccer Down Here 15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives, stuff that they have earmarked as cool from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And so to the point of a lot of other folks, I mean, it's these things, it's like, just give me an old-fashioned T-shirt that's just, kind of hanging out. Just give me a big one. If it's an XL, make it a big XL, because there are some folks that make XLs and they are universal XLs. I mean, literally, they take into account everything. It's baggy, it's fantastic, and I love it. So yeah, this international gear stuff, it's the stuff that you got to work on. Okay, so let's see who else is in this morning. And Michael's in this morning. Michael understands good business, but how does selling our best players help us win trophies? Strategy hasn't been successful in hardware since 2019. Let me bring in Jarrett. Jarrett's here. Jarrett, the rundown this morning is Bart in 20 minutes to discuss not Open Cup, but the Olympic team. It was a different O. So we got Bart coming on at 10 o'clock to discuss national team and national stuff.
As long as Bart's gonna flay them, that's fine, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, we just watched a guy who should have been on that Olympic team drop a goal and 3 assists.
Yes.
Saturday night.
Yes.
And the people in charge, decided that he needed to be an alternate and nothing more. And I can't, with the U.S. national team set up and just the absolute pants on head incompetence that is displayed on a daily basis. I can't. And that's not to say that Luna would have showed up at the Olympics and had like a world-beating performance.
But present evidence giving it to you.
But President is giving it to you, and you want to go on merit. I'm still trying to figure out why the hell Cincinnati let Miles Robinson go. They didn't have to.
And they don't have any center backs.
Cincinnati's going to start taking center backs out of the Twitch pitch.
Yes.
They don't have a choice. I'm amazed they let him go, dude.
No Miazga, no Haglund. You were down to 2 center backs, and you decide, yeah, Miles, go ahead and go to the Olympics.
I have no idea. Whatever.
Fine.
So what else is part of the run? I'm sure the discussions of Saturday night was weird and dumb and infuriating for. I wasn't even as mad about the scoreline as I was mad about the performance and the lack of focus from some of the veteran players. I think that was what pissed me off more about Saturday night than anything. I know we have the discussions about guys coming and going. Yeah. So I saw Michael's comment as I was jumping in about, selling and making profits on guys. It's weird, man. Like, it's like Giacomakis, I never expected to be part of that. I don't know that anybody did. I don't think you brought him here to turn around and sell him. I think you brought him here initially to be a guy who's here for 3, 4, 5 years through his prime seasons, and to be kind of that, if you want to go off the Seattle comparison, but like the Raul Ruidiaz kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I think the idea was Giacomakis comes here at 28. He's here till he's 32, 33. Yeah. You get a guy who can play up top for you for a number of seasons. He can't stay healthy, and you get an offer for a ton of money because Cruz Azul gets a little squirrely and decides they want to blow a bunch of cash.
Yeah.
And he can't stay on the field. You do that deal. Mm-hmm. You go try and recreate it. It's not ideal, but he wasn't staying on the field and someone offered you money for him.
Yeah.
You do it.
Yeah.
Almada, we always knew this was the game plan. Now, whether or not you think going to the Eagle group is the right move, that's between you and God. I don't know.
Hey, John Texter wants to cut you a check for 21.
John Texter wants to basically do everything short of full-on like league style tampering. Go do you, bud. Do whatever you want. I don't really care. And then Caleb Wiley, this always kind of felt like the inevitability because of what he had shown you, that there's going to be homegrown guys you develop and you hope to keep forever. And it'd be awesome to see Noah Cobb or Efrain Morales stay here for an extended period of time. To be those guys who came up through the system, who is one of your own, who's here for a long ass time. It's just not going to happen all the time. And Caleb's going to be a great example of that, because what you get with Caleb now is the fact that he plays a position that is a premium, which is a functional left back who is improving defensively and can be a threat offensively, or a left wing back, however you want to run him out there. Yeah, people going to come calling for him. And as much as we talk about these guys we've gotten from South America who have the aspirations to go to Europe, so do the guys who grew up in Metro Atlanta. They grew up watching European ball too.
Yeah.
Like kids growing up in, anywhere else think I want to go play in MLB or NBA. It doesn't take away that, it doesn't mean the Euro leagues or the Aussie leagues or the Japanese or Korean leagues in baseball are bad, but people aspire for what they view as the top flight.
Yeah.
And for a lot of guys, that's going to be Europe, including homegrown guys. So, you're going to move guys in those aspects. It sucks. I don't want to see them move, but it's just kind of be what happens. Yeah. As far as Saturday night goes, that's a weird game, man. It's a tale of two halves. You gave up a goal in the first minute, but then you were better than Salt Lake.
Yeah, you were.
You were. I know it is a consistent theme around here to be very feeling sorry about ourselves, about everything, and everything sucks. You were better for the first 45. You had a game plan. You executed it. You got a goal. You should have gotten more than a goal.
Yes.
You should have gotten more than a goal. You did not finish. And then you were in a tight game. The second RSL goal is weird, where it goes off of Derek's face and then bounces right to somebody who can finish. And it's unfortunate, but it happens. And then I get pissed off because The third goal is, somebody leaves Chicho Arango exposed on the back post. I know everyone likes to dump on Brooks Lennon for whatever reason. He's got two guys there. He's marking up somebody on the backside already. Mm-hmm. Chicho Arango wanders from the middle of the field to the back post and no one goes with him.
Yeah.
If you see somebody loop around to the backside
Perhaps,
and no one goes with him, everyone's marked up, it's not zonal marking, then he's not marked. And then what you get is somebody making the in-cutting run. He floats to the outside a bit. All of a sudden, Brooks Lennon, who cannot clone himself in the moment like an X-Man, has to make a decision. He chooses the in run. He chooses wrong. Somebody didn't go with Chicho Arango. He's wide open for the header. That's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
The lead up, I don't know what Tristan Williambaugh is doing on the goal shot from the edge of the 18, which
you
takes
could have landed a plane between Tristan Williambaugh and that space inside the 18.
Well, I mean, because he's basically guarding the short corner there, but he's just kind of staring at the flowers on the ground. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know, man. Like that ball takes a deflection. Maybe Goose has it measured if it doesn't, because it takes a deflection, goes corner. Yeah. The finish is misfortune for you, but you've set yourself up by also nobody going with him, floating to the top of the box to get open. You've set the finish is unfortunate. It's poor luck for somebody like Goose, but it is created by somebody not doing their job at the top of the 18, because somebody's got to go with him and recognize that he is getting set up for that. Now, whether that is somebody who gets caught on a pick, or you need to call a switch, or somebody's just not paying attention, then you have that. And then the killer one late that that gets me is like where Sleesh plays a pass to Tristan and he just doesn't go for it. Yeah. And he just doesn't backtrack after it turns over. Like, we had this conversation last Wednesday with Tyler that I said then that like Tristan's the one that needs to be fighting to earn minutes right now. Mm-hmm. And look, your first half I thought was really good. The second half was not as good, and there were moments where everybody hung their head and felt sorry for themselves or didn't bust their ass, and the people who busted their ass were the teenagers that can't legally drink.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. Like, credit to the kids. Noah Cobb planted Chicho Arango about 6 feet under the ground at the end of that game.
He did.
Like, Luke Brennan chased every ball like a dog on meth.
Yeah.
And was trying to make stuff happen. Jay Fortune got stuck in a couple times trying to force turnovers in the midfield to create something going the other way. Took some risks. Some of them paid off. Some of them didn't. Yeah. But he's trying to do stuff. Like, it's great that the kids are doing that, man. I'm glad. The kids, the academy, for all the issues with Atlanta United 2 and the underperformance on the field record-wise with Atlanta United 2, the academy and
Oops.
I love that they're willing to just go out there and not be afraid, throw their body around. We've seen Alan Carlton do it with the twos. Mm-hmm. That like Alan Carlton will just spray balls around left and right. He's really he has fantastic vision, but I've also watched him get stuck in on challenges and challenge people twice his size.
Yeah.
And size in terms of weight, because Alan Carlton still is a stick.
Yes.
It's great that the kids are doing that. It shouldn't be the only one. And yeah, like, the Williambaugh turnover, and he's just standing there. It killed me. Like I said last week, and I feel even stronger about the conviction now of, God, I love what Tristan gave you last year. But if he's not going to bust his ass, then find me someone who does.
Yeah.
And if that is Jay Fortune, and if Jay's not always consistent, because he's still a young player, he's going to have games where he's really good. He's given games where he's bad. If he's going to bust his ass for 90 minutes, great. My favorite part about Tristan, as we're having this discussion about whether or not it's a good or a bad signing, You know when he was at his best? When he was partnered with Mateus Asetsu, who everybody couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
That partnership was great. Everybody already had Asetsu's bags packed and on the flight for Delta to get him out of here. That was great. That was a wonderful partnership. And then
because you had that yin and yang, I think, that's necessary at times in the midfield.
you should have kept. You could have kept that partnership alive. Yeah. Then the last goal from Luna it's a great finish. Again, send Luna to the Olympics, but U.S. soccer is too incompetent. It's the 5-2 result is not great. I'll tell you, man, I didn't have a lot of expectation for that match anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's leading into Open Cup. It's on the road. It is, and look, I don't know how y'all feel, man. Like, for me, RSL has been the best team we've seen from out west. They were better than what LAFC showed me.
Yeah.
LAFC is not bad. This isn't a shot at LAFC.
But I think that RSL is better.
Yeah, RSL is more fun.
Yes, that's true.
It's more fun than watching Steve Cherundolo sit in a low block and then break out every now and then complain when things don't go his way. We are not ready for.
No.
Sorry, Bam. We are not ready for Steve Cherundolo, national team manager, complaining about every single little thing in CONCACAF, because that's always done at LAFC.
Oh, that's going to happen.
He's got a trophy. He's got the hardware. Props to him. I don't want to listen to him bitch about everything, because I feel like every time something doesn't go right for LAFC, all I get is Steve Cherundolo complaining about things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Welcome to CONCACAF.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. Yeah, the score line itself isn't great Saturday night, obviously. This was a weird weekend, man. So go back and look at the scores. A lot of hiding this week.
To your point.
Yeah, a lot of people got their ass beat this weekend. It was weird. I don't know, it was a full moon or something this weekend, but losing like that on the score sheet doesn't bother me nearly as bad as the fact that it just seemed like guys fell apart and then weren't fighting.
Yeah.
Although
you could tell who was and who wasn't out there.
I will give Daniel Rios his flowers. Like, Daniel Rios is not a perfect striker.
No.
There's a reason he's your third choice striker. He combined real damn well with Saba on that first goal. Gets free on the back post for the second goal. He combined really well last week with Thiago. Rios is doing what you need him to do. It's not perfect. It's not going to come off every time, but he's taking those risks in the attacking half, and he's trying to make stuff happen. He's on loan. He's trying to earn a contract for himself too, and I give Rios credit, man. He's worked hard. And yeah, I don't know, man. I want to see what tomorrow night looks like. God, that's tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, tomorrow night. See how many kids you throw out there, because if guys are going to be walking around, if they're not going to chase stuff, find me somebody who will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, and to Katie's point, like, it's moving up the striker list, which is not hard. No, it's not, especially the backup striker list. That's an oblique existence all of our lives. The thing for me with him is that he has continued to try and make others around him better. It's like he's not just like running around like trying to press the air or trying to press somebody. Like, he has finished some chances, not all, but he's also assisted. He's tried to play guys in. Like, I like what you've gotten from Rios, which is great, because Jamal Teore is wonderful. Love Jamal. Jamal has a minor inconvenience of availability.
Yes.
The greatest ability is availability. He does not seem to consistently have that. So you got to have somebody do this for now. Yeah, man. See what you do Tuesday night, because here's the thing: you got Tuesday night. I have been tickled by the amount of people already writing off Tuesday night. I don't know, man. If you want to be that pessimistic about this and everything in your life, That's fine. It's a hell of a way to live your life. Sure, at the end of the day, you can point at something bad and go, see, it told you it was going to happen. But, dude, it's a miserable way to exist. You've got that Tuesday.
Sporting and Dallas play each other on Wednesday night, man.
Sporting Dallas tried to kill each other last night. Then they have to play the midweek.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, they have to play in the midweek again. So if you beat Indy 11 at home, which you should, it's going to be tough, but it's a home match where these USL MLS games differentiate is managing the depth. We'll see how the depth gets managed. You get through that, then you get to go to either SKC or Dallas, who will try and murder each other.
And I go for it. Knock each other around. Give me cards.
You might get cards. You might get like red cards in that game because they were about to throw down last night. If y'all saw the end of the the Kansas City Dallas game, they were about to throw down. Great, do it Wednesday night. That's when it matters.
Yep.
Go and get some people sent off. That's what I need in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, So Saturday wasn't great. I was more disappointed with the way guys reacted than I was with the final score, and the final score wasn't great. It's not to excuse the final score. It's the lack of balls and grit and fight, because you call it whatever you will, man. The lack of that was unmeasurably disappointing.
Yeah.
And I get it's a tough game. I get things have gone against you with a couple of a weird goal off a set piece that goes off somebody's face when you're set to clear it out of the way. I get there's a deflected ball that goes into the net. Get that. Can't quit. Can't be getting shown up by the 19-year-olds and the 20-year-olds. You cannot.
Look, you get to see who's invested and who isn't in situations like that. And I think that second half was one of those instances where you got to see, to your point, where Noah Cobb planted Chicho Arango and stood over him for a couple of seconds before the play. He went back and rejoined the play. It's like,
good. At that point, you might as well, man. He laid him the hell out.
Yep.
Put Afra out there.
Yeah. Well,
let Afra run people over.
Well, but to that point, I was wondering, and you run out Matthew Edwards and Luke Brennan late. I'm wondering how much of this is making sure that you had folks that you could count on for this matchup tomorrow and not get your minutes jumbled up on the weekend. I think that because Rob and the staff are having to navigate the match in RSL. Actually, go back. The match in Foxborough, flying to RSL, coming back here to get ready on the quick for Indy 11, and then having to go to Montreal before you get 2 days worth of rest. Then you've got NYC coming to town. Then the window opens on the 18th, and then you can bring in Pedro Amador to help you out.
Well, and you're waiting for rumors to kick up elsewhere. I know there's a pretty defined split about whether or not you bring in players, or you bring in the manager first and you see what you want to do.
Yeah.
I know it's split like that, but you're not going to give up on this. They're not going to punt on the season outright. That's just, and also you might have guys available right now who you actually really want at an affordable price.
Yep.
You're going to have to figure that out. It's not as simple. It's not FIFA, man. It's not a video game. You have to factor in who's going to be available. Who do you want? Who might be available in the January window, because you are on an opposite schedule to everyone else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that simple, man. There's a bunch of moving parts to it. Yeah. We all want more rumors to pop off about bringing in somebody to play at top, bringing in somebody to play at the 10. It'd be great. It's unfortunate that everything broke as it did time-wise. Maybe it doesn't break that way if you don't have the streak you had in the middle of the season.
Yep.
The butterfly flapped its wings early in the season, and here we are. Maybe if it flaps its wings differently otherwise early in the season, maybe it's a little bit different. I don't know.
And that's what we get to stare at over the next little while. And remember, as we always say, this time of year, check your sources, check your sources, check your sources. Have to keep an eye on this kind of stuff. So we know about Barco and a possible sell-on moving forward to Spartak Moscow. We've heard players that are,
That's going to be tricky too, bud.
I mean,
like financially, that's going to be tricky because
give me a player.
Because of the Russian money involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a bit of an issue right now involving Russian money and the world stage.
Yeah, and if it comes down to it, I wonder. You said give me a player. I wonder if you go to
go to River.
I wonder if you would go to River and be like, hey, obviously the Russian money's not going to work for us, because it might get caught up in like geopolitical stuff. I'm assuming there's a sell-on with Barco. So
yeah, and that's part of the deal. Yeah.
What if you, Sosa's still in our books, Tom. He'll be gone. Like it's Sosa and Ibarra are still on the books. Moreno's gone outright. Sosa and Ibarra are probably both going to stay in Argentina. They've both been really good. Sosa's been fantastic playing as a center back. Ibarra, I don't think he's been as great, but I don't know if he's played as much at Rosario Central. But both of those will be coming free too. You'll have two U22 spots when that happens. Again, this is cleaning up. You're still there. Those are the parts of the books that you are still cleaning up. You just got to figure that out, and you got to clean that up. You got to clean up. Are you going to keep Evan Mosquera around? Mosquera's starting to run into injury troubles as well, and he hasn't been as effective as he was late last season and early into this season. You got a decision to make on him. Thing is, a lot of the guys you've signed recently, like Stian Gregerson, new signing. Derek Williams, new signing. Both of them more good than bad, I would say. Although Stian staying on the field right now hasn't been as consistent, which sucks. And hopefully you're just managing him right now.
Right.
Tristan, last summer. Jury's out. Great when he got here. I've been very disappointed recently in him.
Yep.
See, Michael, you did, and God, where was he at last year? Defensive Justicia sitting back.
Who?
And you had to take him back. Like I know part of the argument was like, well, just keep him down there. Well, that's not how you maintain a relationship in the international game.
Right.
When they said, hey, it's not working for him down here, we need to send him back. You don't say, nope, no take you backies. You got to keep him.
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You can't keep him down there like it's a prison. You take him back and you try and make something work to maintain that relationship, the defense at Justicia for the future, so that you have a good working relationship with him, so that in the future, if y'all want to do a deal together, you don't have this cloud of trash hanging over everyone's head.
Right. You
got to maintain that.
Yeah.
And I get it'd be great. You would love to have like sent him away and kept him there and get him off the contract. I don't know what his contract is. I don't know if it's up this year or next year, but you figure something out.
We'll effort on that.
Yeah, you'll figure something out, because I think you're to a point now where, like, I'm interested to see what Tyler Wolf's contract situation's like. So I'm not actually sure what his is. Luke Brennan is moving up those winger rankings. I feel like pretty much every week at this point. Go call Rocket and tell him he can come back and play here. He doesn't have to go to the Charlotte Academy.
Charlotte Academy. Yeah.
I need to check. Hey, what happened in UPSL?
I don't know. That's a question for Maddie. We'll see if Maddie can drop by. It's after 10 o'clock, so Bart's here. And we get to discuss what's going on with the men's national team, the youth national team, and Bart with his Legoed stadium background, ladies and gentlemen. He is back from the Wasatch. It is the Soccer for USPOD's Bart Keeler. How was the trip?
Look, if someone has to go spend several days in the Wasatch National Forest to go cheer on this team so the players feel like they mean something, even though they clearly don't want to play all that well on the road, I will volunteer to go follow this team on the road to destinations like Salt Lake City. If someone has to do it.
Hey, the kids seem to work their ass off. They seem to appreciate it.
I was wondering, Jared, honestly, why Luke Brennan wasn't in the game, like, I don't know, not at halftime, but like at 60 minutes. Because I feel like that game needed a Luke Brennan, just like, hey, bud, go run really hard.
I'm thinking that you might need him you're going to need him for 60 in tomorrow. So
Yeah, that was the thought I had. Obviously, well, on the way home, which was a journey in itself.
Yeah, I saw on your anybody who follows Bart on social knows how much of an adventure it was for him to actually get out of Salt Lake and get back to it. Got back this morning, literally at the crack of before dawn 30.
Right. Well, the red eye from Denver was always the plan. The problem was I was expecting a longer layover in Denver, and I have friends in Denver, so I was like, oh well, I'll go get dinner with them, and like I had like a long 10-hour layover in Denver. It's like, oh well, that'll be cool. I can go out of the airport, go see friends, get dinner, and then come back in. That did not happen because Frontier, which by the way, I have had very good luck with Frontier. Okay. This has just happened to be one of those days where one plane was delayed, and that means another plane was delayed. And so my flight that it was originally at 1:30 Salt Lake time got pushed back to, I don't know, it still hadn't left when I left Salt Lake. I switched to a flight at 6:30.
Frontier doesn't deserve the fire that it gets.
Oh, I've never had bad luck with Frontier until today. And it was only one flight that apparently one bad thing happened. Even the flight that I came back to Atlanta on, they said that they had some weather issues coming out of Atlanta, so it was delayed a little bit by 30 minutes.
I like Frontier. It's not Spirit. Calm down, everybody.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, it's not. Frontier are good people. I won't talk badly about them, but they got me home. So hey,
Spirit is like DB Cooper Airlines. They just sit you in a seat and say good luck.
Like, hey, look.
If you would like the plane to land, that'll be an extra $40. Yeah, otherwise, you're just jumping.
Right. Hi, Abby. Hi, Will.
We do have abs, and I'll go ahead and do this as a breaking news sounder. It's earlier in the Twitch pitch than Bart's arrival, so I'll go ahead and do this. Abby lets us know that the Abstermobile is no more. 348,665 miles. She just signed over the title, and the mechanic knows someone who needs a good home for a 2010 Honda Odyssey. 348.
Sorry to hear that, Abby.
65. I think she beat the Beast. I think the Beast had in 345. I think it just beat the Beast out. But figured we go ahead and have that as a breaking news. After all of the time.
Sorry for your loss, Abby, but I know you're excited I know you're not. You say you're not necessarily excited for a new car because that requires learning a new car. But I'm excited for you to get a car that will make sure you get from your house to the airport.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the trick. Yes, you don't have to be excited to have to replace something that means that much to you, but then when you get into something new, I hope you will enjoy what it gives you and the modern luxuries of these smart cars, basically.
Yes.
Not a real smart car like the tiny ones, but like nowadays cars are
intelligent.
Do everything.
Not a scrunched vehicle, but an intelligent vehicle.
Yes.
Smart. 10 of 8 this morning on the Today Show, Bart.
Yeah.
It was Eastern time. You end up with the list of folks that are being sent over to Paris to represent the United States, and one of them is the kid from Morningside, whose dad has a pizza.
Ain't that I'm sorry, I'm blowing the explicit rating. That's the fucking coolest. I'm sorry, I'm just so excited for this dude. I'm sorry, John. That deserves.
Don't apologize to him.
Why are you apologizing to me for blowing the explicit rating? It's an understood on a morning show. Come on.
I know, Caleb. I cannot express how proud we all should be of Caleb because he has just put in so much work we're talking about $10 million transfer to Chelsea and then, Strasbourg or whatever the A to C to B to F goes. But
this oligarchy structure in soccer is some BS,
whatever.
First of all,
this kid grew up playing soccer in the streets, playing in free rec programs as a kid, to becoming our most productive homegrown player. A guy who is, I mean, seen across the league as a very good left back and a promising future men's national teamer. And now he's, sealing that with his ticket to Paris for the 2024 Olympics. And that is just like, that is awesome. And I know there's been a lot of hand wringing about what the Atlanta United Academy actually produces. But this thing is barely 10 years old, if that. What's 2024 is, we're not even 10 years into this academy structure, and we've got a kid going to the Olympics. That is awesome. And then, we'll throw Miles in there a little bit because he was developed in Atlanta United's system.
I will die on the hill that we should give Frank de Boer some credit for Miles's development, because he wasn't 100%. Playing under Tata. And you gave him to a Dutch center back manager, and he turned into a monster.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I think both of those guys are a testament to what Atlanta United had built early on, and especially for Caleb to watch him come up right before our eyes, and become. I mean, he's had an interesting season. I think it's fair to say that he, in my opinion, has stagnated, but I feel like that's just because he does need a move to Europe. I was chatting with someone in the stands at the game while we were being blinded by the sun that we needed. He was like, "Oh, I don't know why Caleb's going to Europe. It's too soon. He's only 19." I was like, "Because he needs to. He cannot grow anymore, right? He's got to go find a bigger pot to go let his roots sink a little deeper, and so he can grow taller." Physically, I think he's still growing. Every time I see that kid take the field, I swear he's getting bigger. And this is another just like a great step for him to prove how good he is on literally a global stage.
Right now, the rest of the group, and we can get into snubs and such.
Yeah, how do you feel about the guy who put up a goal and 3 assists being told that he's not good enough for the Olympic team, but he can be an alternate if he wants to?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that the coaching changes don't just include the senior national team coach.
Buddy, your lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
Because that. I'm sorry. That John goes to the roster, and then we'll talk about the dude who bossed us.
Okay. All right. So here's how it was released. They had a nice presentation on social media that didn't get into all of the names. But here's how it is. 15 of the 18 capped by the full U.S. men's national team. Keepers, Patrick Schulte, Gaga Slonina. Defenders, Maximilian Dietz, Nathan Harriel from Philadelphia Union. Miles, don't know him. John Tolkien, Caleb Wiley, Walker Zimmerman. So basically, you've got 2 Georgian of your 6 defenders.
Yep.
One that came through Gwinnett and one that came through Soccer in the Streets.
Yep.
Midfielders, Gianluca Busio, Benja Kremoski, so he's landlocked now, Jack McGlynn, Georgi Mihailovic, Tanner Tessman. So 2 from Venezia are in the midfield. Forwards, Paxton Aronson, Taylor Booth. So Aronson and Booth, both from Utrecht in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
Duncan McGuire, who is somewhere in transit between the purple team and Rovers, I guess, Blackburn. And Kevin Paredes from Wolfsburg, Griffin Yao, who is at Westerlo, who we know from his time at DC United. Your alternates, Josh Atencio from Seattle Sounders, Jacob Davis from Sporting Kansas City, to be joined by fellow Sporting Kansas City and John Pulskamp, and Johan Gomez from Eintracht Braunschweig in Germany. That's your 18.
Say that last one again. Eintracht what?
Eintracht Braunschweig for Johan Gomez out of Germany in Keller, Texas. So that's your 18 plus 4. And from what I understand, I was looking at notes earlier today. It appears that our friends at Monterrey were asked about possibly releasing Brandon Vasquez, and they were like, nah, fam, not going to happen.
They paid a lot of money for him. I understand.
Still trying to figure out why Cincinnati released Miles. Cincinnati doesn't have a center back to stay.
I know. No, and they released him for Copa, and he didn't play a dang minute.
I had flashbacks to 2017 when we released Brad Guzan to the national team, and he had to sit behind geriatric Tim Howard. And that was like that was when
Jarrett,
Brad was like in his prime.
Jarrett, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the bad place.
By the way, I have an offer on the table. Cincinnati, you need a center back. I will give you one Luis Abram. I will give you Luis Abram and some Gam Tam, whatever you want.
Wow.
I request one Yuya Kubo in return, please.
Oh, see? That wouldn't be a bad. I'd love to see that happen, but I don't think that's going to happen, sir. So Diego Luna and Brian Gutierrez were ruled out because not because their clubs refused to lend them out, but it was because they basically were like, nope. And so,
I'll put a pause slight on the Brian Gutierrez thing.
Okay.
Chicago hasn't really played ball with him before this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little unfair to say, oh, well, yeah, he can go now when he hadn't been allowed to go to any of the other camps. And despite him being a very good player, I think that is absolutely true. I understand why a guy who hasn't been a part of really any U.S. youth camp isn't suddenly being called up for the Olympics when he has had zero integration with the coaches or the system. Now, let's move on to Luna.
Sure. Well, and then there's also the Cade Cowell discussion if you want to get into
that. Cade Cowell is not as good as people want him to be. There's the end of that discussion.
Cade Cowell's entire career is what if. Thank you, Bart. You beat me to it.
Yeah.
I like Cade Cowell. He just isn't what he isn't what
he's
we
a great kid, it
dreamed of
seems
him
like.
being.
He's got a great head of hair. Dude looks like he could lift a semi-truck, but
he looks like Max's brother in Stranger Things.
He does. He needs to be working. Does he? Yeah, I like that. That's a good shout. Who was also the Red Power Ranger, by the way, in the newest edition of the Power Rangers movie. I don't know
Jesus.
And also Australian.
Well, I'm also going to point out real quick that the original Red Power Ranger, if I'm not mistaken, is still locked in the state of Texas. He can't leave because of he committed fraud on COVID funds. So I think he's still he couldn't attend conventions because he still can't leave the state of Texas.
Okay, the Green Power Ranger is still part of the Power Ranger franchise somehow. So there's that.
That's my childhood. Jason David Frank passed away last year. So
he was up working with the Power Rangers franchise, I think, up until the moment he died, because he was on some
needed the money
series when my brothers were coming up watching it. Anyway, that's my childhood in a nutshell. Power Rangers. I had all the
anyway.
Brought to you by
Savan. Mm-hmm. I think the Diego Luna snub is it's a catastrophic miss from this program. And I think if you want a example, just a anecdotal example of the things that you actually can criticize U.S. soccer for right now, I think Diego Luna is one of them, and he is such a crafty, gritty, skilled, and determined player. I understand that there are literally physical limitations. The dude's 5'2". I think he and Luciano Acosta, but like both of them pack a whole lot of offensive talent. And not that, and that's the thing, is physical size shouldn't matter. Look at the best player in the dang world. He's all of 5'6".
Sure.
On a good day.
Put him in my pocket.
Yeah, I mean, if you put Messi on top of a podium, he might be taller than Miles Robinson. I don't know. But I think, when you're evaluating a kid like that, it's hard, because at the youth age, you see all the skill, but you wonder, how does he handle the durability of being just small? But you see what he's done in MLS, not just this year. And he's been a professional for a long time. I mean, he came through USL, goes to RSL. I think this was one of those players that, I understand it's an 18-player roster, so you do not have a whole lot of spots, but you're using an overage spot for Georgi Mihailovic, who I like a lot, by the way. Georgie's like another one of those what-if players, but You somehow couldn't find a way to get Georgie and Luna in the same roster because reasons. I just think that that's a bad roster build and bad talent evaluation. And I think, if you want to cede some points to U.S. soccer on this, I think it's fair to say that Luna has never looked great in a U.S. shirt, but neither has Georgi Mihailovic, which is the reason that he hasn't been a mainstay for despite him having a whole lot of attacking skill. And I think, Greg specifically, we know had a whole lot of input with Mitrovic in building this roster. I'm sure Crocker, when he's not in England, had a lot of say into this roster. And it wouldn't surprise me if even like Oguchi Onyewu had a lot of input into this roster. But why they couldn't find a way to get Diego Luna, on this team is a failure, to be quite honest.
To answer your question, Ropes, it is Marko Mitrovic. He is the Olympic coach. And Marco is a part of the discussion. Henry Bushnell had a deep dive. And here's just to give you an idea. It's over at Yahoo. Bushnell's title: Why Olympic Men's Soccer is a JV event, parenthesis, in which the U.S. could contend for a medal, closed parenthesis. And he goes to the whole rule changes and how it ends up with the U23 adjustment with the 3 exceptions and all this kind of stuff. It appears that only 2 of the world's top 100 ranked players are going to be present: Julian Alvarez for Argentina and Ashraf Hakimi for Morocco. And so here, Bushnell refers to it as this: most of the 288 players instead will be up-and-comers or middling veterans. None of the U.S. men's national team regulars who appeared at the Copa, not even under 23 stars like Gio Reyna, are on the U.S. squad, which was announced Monday. FIFA recognized the games back in the 20s as amateurism, and that has complicated matters. You end up with quarrels between FIFA and the IOC dating back to pre-World War II. In the 80s and 90s, the IOC unwound the rules surrounding amateurism, but then FIFA had become the larger party, the larger power in soccer over the IOC at the time. And so you end up with a bunch of compromises. In the 80s, countries from outside Europe and South America could field all their pros, but any European or South American who had played in a World Cup wasn't eligible. 92, the U23 rule replaced the uneven restrictions. In 96, you get the 3 overage players added, and that's what's been in place since 1996. To your point about Berhalter and the negotiations, apparently U.S. hopefuls reportedly denied included Pepe, Malik Tillman, we mentioned Brandon Vasquez, and Haji Wright from Coventry City. Mitrovic, Berhalter, and their peers around the world have had to piece all this stuff together. And to your point, the idea of the discussions among Berhalter said the second barrier was participation in Copa America. Copa and the Euros were the priority tournaments for 6 Olympic contenders from Europe and the Americas, packed more prestige, according to Bushnell, and prize money, and they took place weeks before the 2024 games. So the U.S., Argentina, France, and Spain all take their A teams to those tournaments, knowing that those A team players would need a break because you've got the European calendar, the Copa, and the Olympics. That means you've got a rest in there somewhere. And so post-Olympic break, maybe, but you've got Julian Alvarez and Hakimi as your 2 big guns out of the top 100 that are going to be a part of what's going on. So, so there's a lot of navigating, gnashing of teeth, and wagging of index fingers about this whole process.
And that's the thing, is that these rosters, the Olympic rosters for every nation, are not straightforward. You don't just pick your best U23 players, your best 18 or your best 15 or whatever way you want to go about it. But because you do have to navigate the club who, especially for the Olympic tournament, a lot of these European clubs, the Olympics go through for the men's side July 30th. Yes. And, that bumps right up to preseason camps for a lot of European teams. You think about the Premier League starts in August. That is going to be a problem, a barrier to clubs releasing players, especially important players. Now, that said, again, with a lot of the MLS clubs, they're willing to play ball. Most of them are, looking at that time period as more of a Leagues Cup break anyway, and that's not a real tournament, so who cares if you win it? And you can afford to lose a player for that tournament. Especially, taking the examples of Tolkien and Wiley, right? Those are U23 guys who start every game at a very important position for their clubs.
Right.
A guy like Duncan McGuire, who, whether or not he's playing with Orlando City or wherever, it's still he was starting for Orlando City, and they were willing to let him go enough. It's hard because you do have to convince them to make that decision. And that's why you saw, I think, almost a year ago, this group for the U23s for the Olympics kind of started coalescing around players who you basically already had assurances from their club teams that they would be going to the Olympics. And that's the thing about Luna that does bother me, is RSL would have let him go, and you never fully got him in. Again, with Gutierrez, Chicago was being weird about it.
Chicago? Weird? Never. No.
Yeah. Who knows? That club, I don't get it. If you're going to be bad, that's fine. But if you're also going to be so bad that you then think that I need this one U23 player to make me not as bad, I don't get it. RSL clearly needs Luna, but they were willing to let him go for this tournament. And a lot of other players, if you're asking, where is this player? I mean, again, you talk Gio Reyna, you talk Ricardo Pepi, you talk Malik Tillman, you talk Wright, all those names, their clubs were like, nah, we need them, which is fair.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about a lot of these team players on the U.S. men's national team still. Yunus Musa, I believe, is still Olympic eligible. Those guys aren't getting released by their clubs for good reasons. So this is, it's always going to be an interesting one. Now, because people don't believe that women's soccer is a professional sport yet, they don't have the same rules on the women's side. And that continues to be a sticking point on top of the only 18 players on the roster, which is a joke in itself. And all of these things do cause there's a lot of if-thens and conditional statements and, all these factors that go into creating a roster. And we get that. And again, that's kind of the issue with a lot of these youth tournaments, period, is you never have your best 18 to 23 of that age group. You never do, right? These same reasons, because they're not not FIFA approved. They're not FIFA windows that are approved, that are mandated that you have to let them go, right? But this one is, again, the Diego Luna omission is still one that's going to loom, I think, large over U.S. soccer's head for a number of reasons. And I'm not saying he's going to magically make us win a medal, right? I don't think that anyone's saying that. It's just, you looked at him. I mean, John, you saw what he did Saturday, which may have been an anger, but
I absolutely think it was in anger.
But he the dude can ball, and at some point you have to go, yeah, the dude can ball. And I think good Lord, we're deviating into it. The biggest criticism that I think anyone would have with the Berhalter regime is it was so about Berhalter's system and not about individual players coming together to be better. It was all about how does the system play out and how do these players fit into the system, rather than how do you create a framework for the players to express themselves individually and succeed together. And Diego Luna is unfortunately a byproduct of a coach who believes so highly of himself that he thinks that his system is somehow going to win the day, despite time and time again proof that that's not how this works, especially at the international stage.
Oh boy.
He's still employed.
Yeah.
And I think it's shameful, because any other country who thinks a damn of itself in the international soccer game, he would have been fired by now. And I'm sorry, that's just the reality. You don't get grouped in a home tournament.
No.
And keep your job. You just don't. And I'm sorry, that's just where we're at with this right now.
Well,
and the fact that they still have to go through these damn review processes and make a PowerPoint or whatever the hell has taken so long.
Well, and that was one of the other topics that I wanted to get into you with this morning. Obviously, they're now saying midweek. So I guess keep an eye out for some kind of a bat signal from me if
It
something
just, John, this all strikes to me as U.S. Soccer being so arrogant, and maybe it's just Matt Crocker, I don't know, that they couldn't perceive that. What do you mean, Greg Berhalter? He's the best American coach that's ever American coached. Why wouldn't he be good?
But don't you have to, and I mean this in the legal sense. I don't mean this in the sense of just, going through steps, that you have to go through some kind of a legally binding process to make sure that your opinions and your evidence is buttoned up so you can
the evidence is you got grouped in a home tournament. As the coach, you have to pay for that. You cannot change the players on the international stage. The players we have are the players we have on the U.S. soccer team. Like the men that we have in this pool, we can go out and maybe hopefully find another dual national.
Yeah.
But they can't change. And yes, I agree that you do have to go through some legalities and make sure of all that. But the review and this constant processes and reviews and data and analytics, and it's just like he didn't win.
Sounds too corporate.
You lost 2 matches at home.
I'm just saying, I'm like, I understand the idea of a corporatized process to make sure that everything is laid out the way that it's supposed to be. But they're saying now midweek before probably one of the largest fait accomplis this side of fait accompli was ever dropped into Webster's dictionary. So maybe the new picture for fait accompli will be this review process. You've got that to look at in the middle of the week. You've got the question, who was it? Abby, how long before the Olympics can you change the roster? I think that's why you have the 4 alternates, correct?
Yeah. So the 4 alternates can be changed only due to injury once the tournament starts. And I think you have 24 hours before the tournament, before your first match.
So you have basically until the 23rd of July to figure it out.
I think that's the rule. Because if you also remember, these games do start before the Olympics start, if you will, because you have a long time to play them. They do kick off before the opening ceremonies, but I'm pretty sure it's 24 hours. But this is not like that. They would still have to be replaced by an alternate if they make any change. You can't just bring in a new player.
I want to bring in a new player. No, that's why you've got the 4, the 2 from Kansas City that are attached to this.
Right. This is a roster submitted to the IOC or whomever. FIFA, I don't remember.
David says, so the U.S. crashed out of the Copa on purpose to open up the player pool? I wish. Oh, I wish. But and Katie Weaver says, the Mexican Federation would never. You're right.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. It's like, look, you don't want to be Mexico where you fire a coach just because he, I don't know, tied someone. You just don't want that. But the reality is, Greg you have a mountain of evidence of what type of coach Greg is and the type of results you're going to get under Greg. And the reality is, he's not going to move you forward more than he already has. Look, what he did for the 2022 cycle, I think, again, he was a good coach for that group at that time. He needed to be able to he needed to mentor and guide and steer a group of young players back to the World Cup. He got out of the group, a very tough group, didn't lose a game in the group. Great job. And then gets wiped by Netherlands, a very good, experienced team, whatever, a blue blood, almost, if you will. The most successful nation to not win a World Cup. Sorry, Netherlands. But now you have not seen any sort of progress in the second cycle. And that's the thing that's frustrating is Greg even had the 6 months time off to reflect. And I don't know, maybe he needed to go on a hike in the woods to figure out what soccer needed to be played like going forward. But he didn't. And what we're seeing now is not a better version of soccer, and it's not a better version of this team. And it's not just the Copa tournament. When you look at Nations League, how you were a 90 plus 5-minute own goal away from being eliminated in the semifinals of Nations League. It's not like this was just a bad showing. it's also the perfect time to make a decision, to make a break, to move on to a new coach, because you do have 2 years, right?
Mhm.
And again, if Copa America was your test run and you failed the test, you have to make changes. You don't just do it again and hope it works.
Oh, you've got to have a
make
corporate
changes.
review, Bart. Come on now.
Yeah. But again, and I understand a little bit what you're saying about the legalities. I totally do, right? And that's why I understand why he wasn't literally fired the next day, you know.
Yeah.
But what are those review processes? You've got lawyers on retainer. U.S. Soccer, you've been in court since the mid 2010s. You have lawyers.
Got that coming up in a couple weeks too.
Yeah, we have another.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our ticket prices are going up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to pay coaches, to pay legal fees.
Billable hours. You got to figure out where to get it back someplace.
I'll give you some billable hours. Fire the damn dude. So.
Oh, goodness. So David wants to know who plays in Ligue 1 France that can join last minute. Actually, I think anybody in Europe.
I mean, Balogun.
You get well, that's true. You get Valerian Balogun in there quick, but anybody on a quick flight that can bring in.
Yeah, I mean,
Air France, I think you'll be okay.
Pepe's in Amsterdam. No, not Amsterdam. Eindhoven. That's a quick train ride.
Yeah.
You know, you got a couple kids in Belgium as well.
Alex Hillman's with him.
Yeah. And Alex up there. I mean, you got a couple guys that are just a quick channel away, if you will.
Exactly.
You know, to be fair, also remember, this is the cool part. They are playing more in the south of France. They play in Saint-Étienne, Nice, and the women are in Marseille. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. And David blames Mrs. Reyna. If she didn't start this disaster to give U.S. Soccer fear of a lawsuit, he would have been gone 2 years ago.
That's absolutely incorrect, David. Absolutely incorrect. I'm sorry. He would have been hired for the second term, and he would have stayed on. His contract, yes, ended after the tournament. They would have renewed the contract. It was very clear that they wanted to keep him on. And to be fair, at that point, he had given you no reason to not keep him on, right? Outside of I think, as we all agree on this show, second cycle managers don't work.
Nope.
Unless you are a guy who has built a program from scratch, like a lot of, sorry to say it, island nations or smaller nations, or you're Didier Deschamps, who has gone to 2 World Cup finals. You know, you don't deserve to just stay on. Even to an extent, Southgate, I think, has overstayed his welcome.
Yeah.
But he's at least gotten you to semifinals of tournaments where England hadn't even done that in the past several decades, despite what they think about themselves. And Greg is just, again, he got you to a point. Thank you very much. We appreciate your work. Go continue to make U.S. soccer better with your coaching somewhere else. And we're going to go find a guy who can make us better and take what you've built and continue to grow it. And who that person is, I have my thoughts. I really do hope that this process, John, is not also considering who the new coach is right now. As much as I would like for them to have an expedited and what the John Wooden quote, be quick, but don't hurry, have
Correct.
a quick process to find a new head coach.
Yep.
You don't need a new head coach until September, right? You do not need to make the decision. And that's why I'm a little concerned about the Cherundolo rumors. Is I'm not hating on him. I actually think, as I've said multiple times on Twitter, I think he's actually the guy you should be looking at for 2030 cycle. I mean that sincerely. The 2030 cycle might be a really good time for Steve. He's got
to change his approach. He can't just...
And I agree. And that's the thing, is if you're looking at him right now, I don't think that's the type of guy you want for this team, right? And I also think that if you're U.S. soccer, you cannot, and this is the statement that American Outlaws, Bart 76, and others have put out, you cannot miss this opportunity.
No.
But I think U.S. soccer is enamored with the idea that a U.S. born or whatever coach is going to somehow be the guy leading this team in 2026. And I'm telling you, I don't care. I want a good coach leading this team to a quarterfinals or more. And I don't think there's an American coach out there right now who has proven that he can do that. Even everyone's star boy, Jesse Marsh, who I'm sorry, Canada's not played. They have a lot of effort and grit. And that's very much mid 2000s, early 2000s U.S. soccer, right? Which is fine. That's where Canada is at their stage of development.
Very Red Bullsian of them, yeah.
Yeah. And you're telling me that The problem with that is, and this is where I definitely I do not like the Jesse Marsh ideas that people think that, oh, we should have hired him. Well, let me rephrase. I do think Jesse Marsh would have been a better international coach than Greg in some capacities. But if you talk about a guy who's committed to a system, he's just as committed to his system as Greg is to Greg's system.
Right.
And if you deploy the Jesse Marsh system, you have a lot of players in this player pool who aren't going to fit that. You're telling me Christian Pulisic's going to do that?
Yeah, Christian Pulisic will be a Red Bullsian press monger. No,
that's not, and you don't want that, because now you're excluding Reyna, you're excluding Pulisic, possibly excluding Serginho Dest. Three of your best, legitimately, three of your best players in your player pool don't fit that system at all.
Yeah.
That system works for Canada, a bunch of guys who hustle, work hard, and know, I guess kind of where they are.
The grinder way, for lack of a better
grinder way. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not decrying it. I'm just saying that that's not going to fit with a guy like, even like a guy like Tim Weah or Flo Balogun. They're not grinders like that.
You're not going to.
You got to find a coach who's
and try and go, counter and go short field, little possession, be clinical, that kind of stuff. No, that's not how it works here.
No, you do. I would like a coach who shares some of the philosophies of Berhalter and the fact that you want to have the ball. Again, I think I'm an Arsenal supporter, and the reason I'm an Arsenal supporter is because they play pretty soccer, but there also needs, on the international stage, you need to have a level of pragmatism. And I think that's always something that Berhalter has lacked. And so you need to go find a guy who can build a system around the player pool. And a guy who can work with players and push players to make them better. And I think, again, that's where we saw with Greg. I don't think he was able to get the best out of the guys consistently. And that's also very disappointing, because that's your ultimate job as a leader of anyone.
Another couple of minutes here with Bart, because I know he's got real world stuff now that he's back from the Wasatch range and has made it back here in one piece. That's Soccer for US POD at Bartimus Prime 19. Abby, roster is set a day before competition begins. So basically the 23rd of July for the US, but that's why you have the 18+4. That's why the +4 are there as your alternates in case there is an injury. If you have to go deeper than the +4, then you probably have to massage some IOC rules when it comes to bringing in an alternate.
You got to bring in someone other athlete, just go get one of those sprinters.
Right. Katie Weaver saying you got to make a big splash for the Home Soil Cup.
100%.
Then Michael Valverde says, not convinced the current player pool is sacrosanct, but let's build a team that fits best together that requires role players too.
I think the problem, though, is that and this is where I've seen this narrative as one, yes, the players are to blame. They did not perform well at Copa America at all. They deserve the blame. But when you talk about build a team that fits best together, okay, fine. But which players make you better, and who are you replacing them on this current route? This idea that, the players like Greg because they knew that with Greg they were going to start in 2026.
Right.
I'm y'all, we're 2 years out from World Cup. I'm not saying it can't happen, but we've talked about this a lot on the Soccer for Us pod, is that the core group of 15 to 18 is pretty set, because those are just your best players, man. There may be some role players that should come up, and some players that maybe should be dropped. I mean, I think you're looking at a guy like possibly Brendan Aronson losing his spot, but that's also not a done deal. He'll just be fighting, know, and while that may make the bottom of the roster better, neither of those guys are, whoever Brendan or whomever plays that position is not going to make you markedly better at a World Cup necessarily.
And what I would ask in these situations where if you think a roster needs an adjustment, I would ask, okay, who are you bringing in, but then who are you getting, who are you
Right.
sending away
Right.
in this kind of
And
a
again,
situation?
this is a national team. You don't just buy and sell players, you know? So to your point, which American magically comes in, and there are some that absolutely should be pushing for starting positions. I mean, we just talked about several. I mean, Griffin Yao might be coming up. Kevin Paredes might be coming up. How does Duncan McGuire fit into the system? I mean, the striker pool is weird right now because you have Balogun, who's I thought had a really good Copa, and then a bunch of guys who are pretty good. But like in the midfield, you're telling me we're gonna just magically find someone better than McKinney, Musa, and Reyna? Someone better than Adams? I mean, we've seen Johnny try to get a run out, and he's been okay. I'm hopeful that Tessman is the one that I think who probably will captain this Olympic team, by the way. I'm hoping that I'm hoping that Tessman can. But okay, content. I'm sorry. Like, I understand what you're saying. I'm not dismissing the idea of bringing in new people. I'm saying none of those people factually are better than the guys who were starting the games in Copa. They just weren't. So I understand that locked-in starters is never good. I think the problem was complacency and the lack of accountability because they were comfortable with Greg, and Greg wanted to be liked by the players, which is fine. You want to be respected. You don't necessarily need to be best friends with these guys.
Right. And that's the thing. You're out there to win trophies and get titles.
Right.
Yeah. So Michael Love already gave you that. Katie Weaver says, I think maybe it's the idea of picking Ream over another option because of his comfort level with Anthony. Say a cohesive backline is good.
I've been on the side of we need to get rid of Tim Ream just because he's old and he's not going to be a viable option for 2026, and we need to start moving forward. But did you see Cameron Carter-Vickers play soccer? It was not very good. He got lucky to not give up a penalty kick against Panama. He was very bad in the friendlies beforehand. Miles not getting a run out.
So then is this where Walker comes back into the discussion?
No. I'm sorry. Walker played like what? 2 full matches in MLS this season. That was the other problem with Copa is like Walker was, I mean, I don't know what his health status is at this point. I don't think anyone does. I get your point, but like, no, I don't think Walker's that guy. He's also on the decline on the age side of things. I understand the idea of you need to bring in new players. I am for that. But Greg has brought in new players. I mean, this is not a guy who has just kept the same 23 his entire time. He even turned over several of them from the 2022 World Cup to now.
Right.
It's just that at the end of the day, you have 15 to 18 guys that those are your best players. And if you leave, like, if you're talking about some of the fringe players, again, a Brendan Aronson, a Christopher Lund, maybe, sorry, y'all, Miles, maybe CCV, who are you replacing them with? If you're talking about a center back, is Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, those aren't necessarily upgrades. And so while you should be turning over stones, it's unfair to say Greg didn't turn stones over. He was exploring the depths of the player pool as he could. The reality is we have a very good good player pool, and it's better than it ever has been. But we have at least 15 guys who are just they're clearly the best in the player pool, and we have some positions of weakness like center back and goalkeeper right now that, unfortunately, again, it's not like we're just going to magically get a better American center back.
No, that's true. And then there are some folks with this particular Olympic lineup that if they continue playing the way that they do, then maybe they get looks at.
And that's fair, John, but that's, again, a point of, we have 2 overage players coming in as center backs. So that shows you the depth of the center back pool, period, as you have Miles and Walker.
Noah Cobb in 26, brother. That's what we need.
Why not? How do you overcome complacency? Well, that's my point, is that it was an accountability thing, right? So the complacency came in because everyone felt comfortable, and that's fine. You want some level of comfort, but Greg wasn't holding them to be better. He wasn't holding them accountable. And that's not Well, again, it's not. They're always in. I mean, if Christian comes into camp thinking that someone else isn't going to take his spot, right? There are other people playing left wing, but I'm telling you that there's not a player who's just going to magically take Christian Pulisic's spot.
Yeah.
Okay. There's not a player who's magically going to come in and be better than Weston McKennie. Okay. We don't just go find these players off trees and say, oh, there's the American soccer player tree. Let me go pick a new fruit today. And that's the issue with the international game. This is not, oh, well, you know, taking Atlanta United for an example. So sorry. You know, well, actually, no, I don't have any problem saying this. Well, Ronald Hernandez has been a trash player for how long, making $8 million more than he should. And we can go find another backup, not very good center back, right back, left back, and pay him half, right? You can do that in the club game. You can say, well, Brooks Lennon isn't performing this year. There's a good option. Brooks Lennon can't seem to track a guy on his back shoulder. Maybe we need to go find another right back. You can do that at the club game. That doesn't happen at the international level. And again, that's why 2-cycle managers don't work. Yeah. And that's what we're getting in with Greg is that, and it's not a bad thing to be friends with the guys, but a lot of the comments about, oh, well, we don't ever talk about soccer with Greg. We talk about life. And it's like, that's fine. But at some point, you've got to be holding their feet to the fire to say, hey, how are you making yourself a better soccer player today? How are you taking steps to improve your career? Having hard conversations with guys like Eunice and Tim Weah right now say, hey, really cool that you're at a big name club in Italy. You're not playing much, are you? Maybe consider moving somewhere that you play a lot that's not AC Milan or Juventus. You know, you could play a whole lot at Roma and still be in, you know, Serie A. You can go to France. That's maybe a half step down. But if you're playing for Lyon or Lille or, you know, one of those
Marseille,
clubs, Marseille, Nice, Rennes, you know, all these clubs that good enough, you know, these you can, if you're, you know, that's the conversation you need to be having. And I think that's where Greg failed in this second cycle. Again, it's not just about, oh, we got to go find new players. The player, if you think that Greg and his staff don't know of all the American-born soccer player, American-eligible soccer players, you know, that if you want to believe that, that's fine. You do that. But there's not a player, you know. Now, again, I think that they have missed on some players, but even like if you're talking Diego Luna at the U23 level, Diego isn't necessarily going to make the senior national team magically better either. You know, he's not. Is he better than Luca De La Torre, who's the fourth best option on the midfield, or maybe fifth with Malik Tillman? Yeah, maybe. But, you know, you can't just keep bringing guys into camp because you do have a somewhat limit on that. It's not like you have a contractual limit, but at some point you just can't have 80 people in camp. And so, again, that's why you change coaches at the international level, because that is the turnover you can do. And that's just how it works, unfortunately. You know, you get a cycle and you do what you can. And, you know, most of the time you have to move on after one cycle.
I was going to get into the Cucurella handball, but we are way the hell over time with you. Thank you for doing that.
We're talking about throwing off someone's head. That was new. I have not seen that to that level of like force.
The Basong Areola incident.
Yes. Yeah. Like that was. If y'all haven't seen it, I had to go back and watch it about 7 times on this trip because I did not. When I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, he just kind of threw it against his head." Right?
No,
he launched it at his head. And Paul, you're lucky you didn't get punched in the face, brother.
Well,
probably just because you're so short, he couldn't reach you.
Well, the end result of that, Basong got a red for violent conduct after Areola threw the ball at him and crowned him with it. And
I think Areola deserved a red card as well, personally.
Yeah. So
I think that may go to the disco committee.
Yeah. So the way, and we'll play the audio for this tomorrow, if we have time. We might end up having to play it on Wednesday. Basong ends up getting a red for violent conduct. Then Areola gets a yellow for unsporting behavior. So that's the differentiation.
I think he should have got a red for violent conduct as well. And I know that sounds really harsh. I do it wasn't that he just tossed it against his head.
No, he crowned him. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that needs to go to the disco committee, and it would not shock me if Paul Areola is not playing next weekend.
Yeah, and so anyone who is attached to either Indy 11 or Atlanta United is saying, okay, hey, when you guys play on Wednesday night, go ahead and go for it. You guys want to take out some more frustrations on Wednesday after what happened last night? You go right ahead. And so that's what Atlanta United.
I do want to say,
yes,
Natalie Simon, I thought did a good job of managing that situation, because that was one of those where sometimes, actually a lot of times, professional soccer players act like stupid kids, and I thought she did a good job of getting in there and and avoiding some situations. She managed the rest of the game after that pretty well too. So
yeah,
good job at that. But good Lord, it was a situation where everyone was being stupid.
Yes, and so play stupid games, win stupid prizes. All right, so obviously the bat signal's out for you this week if anything happens after the administrative review. And what else is going on with the Soccer for US POD?
Well, now that we have the Olympics roster, we'll be doing a double roster episode today to get the
double roster.
Men's and women's Olympic rosters. The women's less controversial than the men's, but really both of them are pretty straightforward for different reasons. Yeah. Women obviously play some friendlies this weekend, Saturday against Mexico and next Tuesday against Costa Rica before they go off to Paris. To my knowledge, they do not have any sort of pre-game or pre-tournament set up for the men. That probably will change once they get to France. I'm sure there'll be some closed door inter squad practices, scrimmages, whatever you want to call them. Sure. So we'll be recording the roster stuff out this week so that we can get that out before the Greg situation takes over
the administrative review. Cycle. Absolutely.
Got to make that PowerPoint.
Yes. As always, my friend, great to have you on for the national perspective of things. And obviously, when the administrative review is over, we'll have you back and we'll talk about stuff.
10 out of 10 recommend going to Salt Lake for that trip, by the way. Okay. Beautiful scenes. Very nice city. Public transit takes you from downtown to the stadium, which you cannot say for about half the stadiums in MLS. Looking at you, Dallas, Frisco. Very highly recommend it. But we won't play them again for another 8 years because MLS forces us to play the entire West Coast of teams before we get to play anyone else in the West Conference.
Still waiting for the trip to Austin, man.
No, John, we have to play the LA teams, both LA teams every year. Because schedule balance or whatever. Stupid.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. And here's something for the Soccer for US POD from David. Does anybody watch the Alex Morgan, Sophia Smith Reese's ad? Yes, I have. Trying to find out if that was made pre or post roster release and if there were any tongue-in-cheek commentaries.
I mean, it's not tongue-in-cheek. It's just that Alex Morgan didn't deserve a spot on the roster, despite what everyone says about, they need the experience and leadership there. I mean, she didn't belong on the roster. You got to play better.
And this is why you listen to the Soccer for US POD. Before you go, what's the mug and what's in it?
Share. Oh boy, this is not working.
There we
go.
And
it's coffee.
Of course. Yes.
Turn back time.
Ow. Got to get it right.
How? Yeah. Love it. Share it's coffee. I'm gonna need another cup of coffee this morning because I am tired.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Go for it. Go get your second cup of coffee, my friend. We'll catch up with you after the Berhalter review.
Yeah. Y'all be good. See y'all in Kennesaw because Kennesaw State is a great university and I love it. I'll see you there tomorrow night.
Be good. There goes Bart. He's going to turn back town. The accent goes on the down slope. And so thanks for Bart for staying for entirely too long for Bart because I don't want Bart to get into any kind of trouble with the real world. I don't know if he made the how do you phrase the allotment of off days to make sure that extra off day was there that was attached. So I guess for spacing purposes, Yes, and David, that is the ad, and it's. But why, as a fan of Reese's, why are you just doing metal Reese's? MEDAL. Why? I like Reese's. Just give me Reese's. You don't have to do all the weird shapes and flavors and things. Don't just give me a Reese's. That's all I want. That's all I want. Just give me your Reese's. I'm not asking for much. Not asking for much. Just give me your Reese's. That's all I'm hunting for. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, and all the stuff before we go and get out of here. Yes, it is quite awkward now in retrospect. What to watch today, where to watch it. I think we have a couple of other things to briefly get into to do some mop-up duty here. A couple of questions about players, availability, contracts, so on and so forth. Nothing today to watch. It's an off day for all of us as we get ready for anything and everything going on in Open Cup. And by the way, it is split up. 7 and 11 on Tuesday. Atlanta United, Indy 11 from the Fraction. Then it's Sacramento and Seattle from Hard Health Park in Sacramento, California. I still think everything goes through Sacramento. I think Sacramento can get the Duke in that one. I think they can. We'll go over juice boxes tomorrow. But I think Sacramento is and ask Keeler Hodges about Sacramento Republic. USL Championship teams at home in this tournament, especially Sacramento out west, very dangerous. Wednesday, 9 and 11, Sporting and FC Dallas. They can just beat the daylights out of each other as far as I'm concerned. Do it again. Give me another Basong Areola to do because, once again, separate competition. And then LAFC New Mexico United is at BMO. This will be a test for Alex Tambakis going up against LAFC. What does the LAFC lineup look like? How rotated is it for Steve Cherundolo? That'll be the big question. But I think everything's going through Sacramento anyway. But I think it's going to be a very interesting test. And I think that you're going to see folks, like I said, I can't wait to see Sporting and FC Dallas on Wednesday night and have them continue to beat the ish out of each other and see if there are any carryovers from what happened on last night. But yeah, probably going to the disco for any kind of additional fun. Jarrett was mentioning all the offense that we saw on Saturday in Major League Soccer. Cincinnati put 6 on Inter Miami, and the And Fringe just got whooped. And you end up with Busquets getting a double yellow, the second for dissent. Got the yellow, wasn't happy, kept woofing, got the second yellow. That's how bad it got. So Busquets gets a 2 yellow red. Cincinnati wins 6-1. Columbus put 4 on Toronto. Orlando put 5 on DC. We've been talking about what happened with Atlanta and RSL. Then you had Kansas City and Dallas scoring 5 goals on total on each other. Colorado put 4 on St. Louis. Portland put 4 on Nashville, and it wasn't even that close. Tom Bryan Anunga ended up with a red card in the first half, and Portland cruised. So you had a lot of goals in this past weekend for Major League Soccer. Contract status, I know a lot of folks were keeping an eye on all of that for Atlanta United. Here's your 24s. End of the calendar year for the 24s. Brad, Dax, Jamal, Daniel Rios, Ronald Hernandez, Nick Firmino, Efren Morales, Tyler Wolff, and Jay Fortune. Those are your 24s. That's not a lot. And considering the roles that you see from Efren Morales, Nick Firmino, I think Jamal when he's healthy, Dax with his experience in the midfield. It's been fun to have Dax around. So you only end up with 9 decisions for players at the end of the calendar year for Atlanta United. 25s, Westberg, Williams, Shonde Silva, Luis Abram, Brooks Lennon, Josh Cohen, Caleb Wiley. Those are your 25s. 26s, Saba, Tristan, Tiago, Mosqueda, Noah Cobb. 27s, Stian, Luke Brennan, Aiden Torres, Bart Sleesh is a 28. So that's where you are right now with Atlanta United and whose contracts are done when. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Things left unsaid and things to keep an eye on. for everything going on overseas. Juve want to sell Chiesa to raise funds to buy Jadon Sancho, with the Italian club holding talks about what type of offer to make for the 24-year-old. Manchester United and Arsenal set to compete for the £30 million signing of Netherlands striker Brian Brobby from Ajax. That's from the three-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. There will be a 3D out later today. Portugal's João Palhinha completed his medical with Bayern. Needs to clarify some details with Fulham. It sounds ominous. That's from Florian Plettenberg at Sky Germany before completing the £40 million move. Manchester United holding a meeting about transfers today, which will include a decision about whether to make another bid for Jared Branthwaite from Everton, four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. West Ham value Jared Bowen at more than £100 million. Have no plans to sell him despite interest from Newcastle. Manchester United's Mason Greenwood wants his future sorted out next week. Atletico Madrid, Barca, Juve, Lazio, Marseille, and Valencia, who have made a £25 million bid, all interested. Manchester City have registered an interest in 23-year-old Anthony Gordon from Newcastle. Contract runs out in June of 26. Joao Cancelo has been offered to Inter Milan and Juve after returning to Manchester City following the end of his loan spell at Barca. Real Madrid's going to wait until Alphonso Davies finishes playing at the Copa before trying to sign him in the transfer window or deciding to wait until next summer when he's a free agent. Bayern Munich is going to get £17 million if Manchester United trigger Bologna's Joshua Zirkzee's £34 million release clause, having inserted the 50% sell-on when they sold him to the Italian club. Once again, it's Florian Plettenberg. Arsenal set to make a move for Wolves keeper Dan Bentley. Real Betis reached an agreement with Leeds to sign Diego Llorente, the defender. Spain midfielder Alex Garcia says West Ham tried to sign him from Girona, but he chose Bayer Leverkusen instead. And former Spain midfielder Thiago Alcantara has decided to retire from football after leaving Liverpool following a final season at Anfield ruined by injury. That is from Fabrizio Romano. So nothing to watch today on TV. Derek, yes. And Friends getting spanked. You hate to see it. And Friends getting spanked. Hate to see it. Emilio. Well, and also LAFC is bringing in LAFC. We did talk about LAFC having only 18 roster players for the week of opening day. And Emilio is pointing at their front office. They do know how to massage the rules, shall we say, when it comes to the salary cap. Well, I mean, Michael, just don't. Michael's like, are you stuck with a certain player for a handful of years? Not necessarily. You're not. Remember what we always say when it comes to a contract. You're controlling the asset. You're not stuck with the asset. You're controlling the asset, and there's a difference there. If there is and we got into this discussion with Defensa y Justicia in hour number 1 with Jarrett, where you end up with, if there's a team that is interested, you still control that asset, where if someone is interested, then they come to you. They don't sit there and it's like, yeah, I want to sign him for a free. You control that asset for X number of years. So if someone's interested in Edwin Mosqueda, then they come to you. They don't have to, they have to deal with you. They don't just go straight to Edwin and hey, dude, you want to come over? You want to come over and play? So anytime you see, think of it like this, Michael. Remember when Chelsea, and I'm using Chelsea as an example since Michael's a Chelsea fan. Remember when Chelsea signed Mykhailo Mudryk to the 8-year deal? First off, they did that to defer all of the funds that were spent from Shakhtar Donetsk in the first place. They did that as a deferral to break it up on a yearly basis. But what they've done is they control that asset for however long they want to have him as a part of the roster, in the way that folks will sit there and look at a Mykhailo Mudryk. They'll sit there and go, ooh, I like that. Chelsea's in control of that asset. So think of it that way. Doesn't matter if it's 1 year, 2 years, 8 years. You're in control of that asset for however long the contract is there, so you get something for a transaction down the line. And, well, I mean, there's always going to be, Michael's worried about when there's no outside interest. Well, we don't know what we don't know, first and foremost. But if there isn't, there's always someone who will do you a solid, pick up a loan, those kinds of things. But we don't know what we don't know when it comes to player interest. That is for certain. So, And and Emilio's on a roll on a Monday. Not happy with the roster, not happy with the front office. And Unk is true if it becomes a stuck situation. If the salary's so high, you can't move him on. But in a situation like that, Unk, you end up with a team that will take him, but then you have to help with the salary. And yeah, that does end up being a loss. But once again, it's just player by player basis, and you'll continue to see what's going on as we work. Okay, tomorrow. Before we get out of here, thanks to Abe Gordon and thanks to Bart. We held Bart way too long. Tomorrow, Lucas Panzica, Nashville SC's radio crew. He's going to be joining us off the top to talk about B.J. Callahan. Dale Parker from App FC is going to be joining us, I think, at 9:30 to talk about the NPSL playoffs. Then in the 10 o'clock hour, probably at 10 o'clock, is probably going to be Greg Rakestraw, the play-by-play voice of Indy 11. He'll be on to discuss Indy 11 because if he came on to discuss, League 2, it might be an issue. Efforting another couple of guests, Jonathan Mercado. We're efforting him from Apotheos to talk about the NPSL playoffs and some other folks as well. We'll see what that's going to look like. Remember, 7 o'clock start, Open Cup at the Fraction Tuesday night. Big plans. You heard Abe say it's going to be 6 o'clock for the pregame show and then a full-time report after. And the rain that's in the forecast can stay the hell away. So that's Tuesday. Guests are normal on Wednesday. Tyler at 9:15. Hopefully Dylan at 10. Nino Torres on Thursday at 10. Nico Moreno at 10:30 on Thursday. Friday, once again, the rest of the week is from the mountains. Friday is going to be an 8 o'clock start. We'll do weekend whip around in the 8 o'clock hour to get you ready for things. Then the 9:30 visit from our friends at Beyond Goals, if they're around, that'll be the end of the show. We're going from 8 to 10 Friday because they kick us out of the house in the mountains at 10 o'clock in the morning. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from the mountains. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, normal time. Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern kick, and we'll go from 8 to 10 before they kick us out. So that's the week here on SDH. Obviously very, very busy. It's Atlanta getting ready for Open Cup. It's the other activity in Open Cup. Thank you, Michael, for being there. I've got to say hi to everybody who was here this morning before we get out of here. And we'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning with Lucas Panzica. So let me go back to the top of the order and see who we have and see who made it in here this morning to hang out with us and hang out on the Twitch pitch. So obviously the big breaking news of the morning is the Abstermobile is no more. So morning Ropes, morning Derek, morning Pars. Pars is in Myrtle Beach. Morning Michael as always. Morning Alex, morning Four Card. Morning Wiley. Let's see. We took care of the bot, by the way. That was pretty quick. And thanks for everybody who gives me the heads up on these things because I don't necessarily catch it all. Morning Emilio. Morning Katie. Morning Abby. Let's see. Who else am I missing? Morning Tom. Let's see as I shuttle down here and say hi to everybody who was here on this side. Morning David. Let's see. There was the discussion about Atlanta United. Let's see. Morning. I feel like I need like hold music or something. Morning Will. Morning Four Card. Welcome back. Let's see. Morning Turner. Yeah, Turner. Well, they make the alternates run wind sprints after the game. Don't encourage the behavior, sir. Do not encourage that kind of behavior at all. Don't give them any kind of ideas. Let's see. Morning David. Morning Michael. And like I said, I'm trying to see if morning Hutch. Hutch came in hour number 2. Morning Unk. Morning Emilio. And I probably Custy. I guess good morning on the way out the door. So thanks to all of you guys for hanging out as you always do as we discuss things. And we'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning. Nashville, Open Cup, NPSL, and Indy 11. That's going to be the big discussion. So since it is the end of the show, that means one thing. That means I put up a full screen and whistle us to a close. We'll be back again in a little less than 22 hours.